Hey y'all, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to review this Voigtlander 35mm f1.4 M mount lens. To start with, I'm going to go ahead and say the things that are the detractors because I want to end the video on a good note. I don't normally like to bash gear, and these are probably not actual issues that are just more personal preference items. So take it with a grain of salt. Hey, if you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button. It's right down there. Now let's get on with the video. Okay, to start with, this is a Voigtlander lens made for a Leica M mount camera. And because of that, it's a rangefinder design, okay? So the distance from the lens, the focal to the focal plane is very short, and rangefinder lenses can traditionally be made much smaller for a given aperture size. That's one of the beauties of this Leica CL, or honestly any mirrorless camera. And I'm using a crop sensor one. You can use full frame. This is a full frame lens, mind you. Now I'm going to talk about something else in a minute, but yeah, this one's designed for full frame image projection because it is for a Leica M mount camera. So you could put this on the M mount film cameras and it will cover the full 35mm frame as it should. I bought this lens second-handed. I did not buy it new, so I got a significant discount in it. Take that as part of the deal, you know. But it's f1.4 through f16 and half-stop clicks. It has a beautiful, it's not loud, but it's got a nice firm ball detent at each position. It doesn't, I mean, you can roll through them smoothly, but you know you can count clicks and you'll be exactly on a whole stop or a half stop or wherever you want to be. That part of the Aperture Ring is wonderful. The Aperture Ring has a problem though. It's only tabbed. As you can see, it's this low profile design, so it doesn't have a full band of knurling. Now, the reason this is a problem for me is, I'm gonna set this camera down for a minute, is I've been using this TT Artisan's 35 f1.4. This is a crop sensor lens, so it's even smaller than the Voigtlander counterpart. If I pull off this lens hood, you can kind of see the difference between them. They look almost exactly the same, but the Voigtlander glass is just slightly bigger. And it's actually, it's a different lens design because the elements are spaced differently, but they have integrated the L mount into this lens, but that don't really matter, I don't think. But what it does have is the Aperture Ring is completely circular, and you can reach it anywhere on the front. You know the front ring is aperture and the back ring is focus, okay? And the focus ring goes all the way around. And that's what I'm kind of used to because Nikkor lenses are that way, and I shot Nikon a lot, still do a little here and there, but you know, their focus rings and their aperture rings completely encircle the lens. Okay, so the TT Artisans was a natural transition for that. This Voigtlander mimics a Leica counterpart. It literally is a, I ain't gonna call it a copy, but it's very similar. It has the same kind of feature set. And because of that, you have to learn where the aperture ring is. I find myself missing it, hunting for the little tab to move the aperture, to pick a new aperture or what have you. Because a lot of times I use aperture in a pinch as exposure control. Like if I'm shooting at f8 and it's still a little bright, I'll stop it on down to 11 to take a stop of light off. And with this lens, it's super easy. You just grab the ring at the front and turn it, you know, and darken or brighten the frame because I'm shooting in manual, and it's easy to see those results in the viewfinder. Well, with this, I find myself hunting those tabs because I'm not used to where they're at. Now, if I shoot this lens for 6 or 8 months, kind of like I did this TT Artisan, I will probably get very accustomed to finding those tabs because they only move about, you know, I'd say 1/3 of a rotation from minimum to maximum aperture. So you'll find it pretty easily, you know, once you practice with it. Another thing I'm not so used to is the short focus throw. It's only, I'd say, a quarter revolution. You can see here, it's got this tab on it because that's the way the rangefinders are. You run your single finger focus for most of the range of focus. Minimum focus is all the way around, but literally from 0.7 to 1.2 meters is from there to there. From 1.2, say 1.5 meters, which is 5 feet roughly, to infinity is that much. So if you're shooting street photography, that's all the focus you're moving. It's not much. It's actually kind of handy for street photography. I can hit focus pretty quickly with it. So that's not a real detractor, but you kind of got to get used to that little tab because there's nowhere else to grab the focus ring. It doesn't have a knurled band like the TT Artisans has. I got to be honest with you, the glass in this isn't better. It has a different look. I've noticed it. This lens has really good glass in it. For what you pay for the TT Artisans, it's amazing glass. And just like the Voigtlander, the TT Artisans did not come with the metal lens hood. I had to buy it separate. I bought it separate for this. You can get the Voigtlander lens hood for like $70, and it's a wonderful lens hood. But this is I think it's called a Haoge. It's Haoge, and it fits perfectly. It does exactly everything it's supposed to do, and it was half the money. It's an aluminum lens. You know, this is what I use for a lens protector. I don't run them little UV filters. I run the lens hood, and it helps a little bit with lens flare too. But yeah, it didn't come with the lens hood. You buy it separate for these. But it doesn't screw on. It has this little bayonet deal that looks like a lens mount bayonet that it hooks to. It works. It's, like I said, it's neat. It's a neat way of doing things. But it does have a very low profile. The lens itself, let me just take off the lens hood and pull the lens off of the adapter. That's the whole lens. An M-mount lens is tiny. That's a 35mm f1.4 lens. They're tiny lenses in the M family. Now, I have a genuine Leica adapter now. I bought, for the M lenses. This is called the M Adapter L, and it's their M mount to L mount adapter. The reason I wanted it is it has electronics in it, and it talks to the camera. If you buy the 6-bit coded Leica lenses, and maybe the Zeiss and Voigtlander maybe have some coded lenses. Don't quote me on that, I don't know. But I know that if you use the 6-bit coded Leica lenses, it'll pass that EXIF data to the camera and it'll record it. But the M Adapter L tells the camera you're shooting an M lens. So it activates the zoom mode on this knob that wouldn't normally be there, because when I run this lens, this is kind of a strange phenomenon. I have to press this up arrow to do focus magnification. But when the M Adapter L's attached, it's mapped to this wheel like it should be in manual mode, because you have aperture on the lens, you have ISO as a setting under a push button, and then shutter speed is this wheel. So there's your 3, so it leaves this wheel here, and it becomes focus magnification. You turn it and it zooms in. And so you don't have to like struggle to find it. You don't have to crane down here to get to it. You just run your thumb over and hit and then you're zooming. And it works really well. So that was one of the reasons I wanted that, was it brought that function to the table. But so far I've really enjoyed the lens and it works really well. I got this one for I think $300 is I think is what I paid for it. I'm pretty sure it's what I paid for it. And this is like the Gen 1 styling or whatever. They've got like a newer version of this. It's a little bigger, and I think it might actually have more of a complete aperture ring control ring. Once again, don't quote me on that, but I think it does. But this little package works beautifully. What I've been doing is I've been shooting this 35mm focal length on this CL to mimic 50mm on full frame, and I'm really enjoying the process of using these, and it works really well for me. Now, what I have learned is that image quality is real subjective. So at the end of the day, you know, this lens was 4 times the price of this lens. Is the image 4 times better? I don't think so. I really think that they each have their own characteristics. They both produce wonderful images. I don't know if the build quality of this lens matches this one. It might be that that's where some of the price comes from. I don't really know what makes them so much different, but I do know that this one being an M mount, the engineering is different than the L mount one. They had more room to work, so it might have been easier to build this lens. I just don't know for sure. I don't know. I could count aperture blades and all of that and compare them, but you know, you can buy this TT Artisan lens brand new for like $75. An L mount, and it'll go straight on the camera. And it's probably in F mount and Z mount and R mount and every other mount there is nowadays. But the Voigtlander has been a beautiful lens, and it's called a Nokton Classic. So if you're not used to the tabbed controls, before you jump in and buy one and then get mad because you can't find the aperture ring to make quick adjustments, just give it some time, use it some, and I believe that you'll come around to the Nokton. And the only reason I'm using 1.4 glass is because I want the functionality of low light. It gives me another stop or two of illumination in really, really low lit conditions, so that I don't have to run my ISO quite so high. That's the point of having f1.4 glass for me. Otherwise, I'd have a Summicron. That was one of the reasons I wanted to go down this little rabbit hole of testing with a 35mm, was to get a 35mm f1.4 Summilux M and put on here. And the reason I didn't get the Summilux L, because they make one for this camera, is it's big. It's a huge lens. And the reason I like this camera is its small footprint. I didn't want that huge Summilux autofocus lens. I mean, it's a beautiful lens and it produces gorgeous results. And I consider getting it because it's fairly inexpensive compared to the M counterpart. At the end of the day, I like the size of the M mount lens. I like this size package because it's unassuming, it's small, and it takes wonderful photos. But for now, I'm gonna shoot the Voigtlander and I'm gonna play with it. Now, I've already used the TT Artisans for a while, so, and at the end of the day, I may hang on to this and sell this because I can't justify the value of both. I don't know yet. We'll see. With all that said, I appreciate y'all watching. And until next time, this is David, the Georgia photographer. I'm going to tell you to get your camera out and go take a picture with it. All right? See you later. Bye-bye.